There we go. Welcome, everyone, to Music Matters. If it's Monday, it's Music Matters with Cantor Gurney. And I'm just really happy to be with all of you again. Been another week of interesting events and challenges, but here we are to bring some music and some joy and some discussion to all of you. And I am so happy to introduce all of you to my colleague and friend, Cantor Rebecca Garfein,
Hello.
who serves Congregation Rodef Shalom in New York City, my former congregation before I came to Wilshire Boulevard Temple. And we know exactly, Rebecca and I know exactly how long we've each served our synagogues, right? It's
That's
just
right.
around almost 21
20,
years,
21 years.
right? So great to have you on,
Thank you so
Becky.
much for having me.
You're welcome.
Uh,
And we're going to have a number of reasons why I wanted to have you on in particular, Becky, because we've known each other for a long time, and as you mentioned, you did succeed me at Rodef, and even before that, I was your teacher once upon a time.
yes, you
It's
were.
amazing how much has happened in the last 7 years. we don't. It was too long ago to mention, but for all of us here in Los Angeles, look, we're looking at the news every day now and get pretty tired of it. But certainly our concern for New York City and what life has been there like for so many people, and it's been so impacted in such deep ways that I mean we have been too, but not anywhere close to those of you in New York. So I really wanted to start with what it's been like for you living in New York through all of this, and Upper West Side, and everybody lives and walks close together every single day. And tell us what that's been for you personally.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And yes, of course, you were my coach. And we won't say how long ago that was, but I want to just say for sure that we definitely have improved with age, and not to say that we're old or anything, but
Yes,
we
we
just keep
have.
we just keep getting better. I just want to say that for the
Great.
record. It's very challenging. I live a block away from Central Park, and on a very beautiful day like today, we very often, if I'm not working, and will very often take a walk into the park, which sounds like a lovely thing to do, but now it's very anxiety provoking to leave the confines of the apartment. You have to mask up when you go outside, and
Is that
unfortunately,
mandated? Is that mandated, Becky, or is
it pretty well is. I don't think they're giving out summons or anything like that, but
right?
it's especially in an apartment building. If you get into an elevator, you have to have a mask on and protecting other people, like our service people in the
Right.
building. So it's not the same of, oh, let's go take a walk in the park. It's like a whole production. Or
Right.
to just simply run in to go to the grocery store, then you have to think about, a mask and what do you need, and then you have to wipe down. You don't have to, but you should wipe down everything you've just purchased before you bring it in the house. So, and going into the park, you don't want to get too close to people, so then you're constantly dodging people, or am I getting too close? Are they getting too close? There's that.
Right.
But thank goodness, sun is finally shining here. We've had very cold, rainy, gloomy days for a lot of this pandemic. And yesterday and today, yesterday in particular, was almost 80 degrees here.
Oh my.
So that does make a huge difference in everyone's mood, and seeing all the beautiful flowers and the breeze is blowing and it's a little warmer. You don't have to wear a coat and a scarf and all that. But yeah, I live uh, 3 blocks from the 100th Street precinct of the fire department and the police department.
Yeah.
And we always heard sirens before. You'd hear sirens, and that's just par for the course. But now, I mean, since this has started, it's been like a constant. You hear it all day long, constant sirens. So It's a little unnerving. Huge line, you know, outside to go into Whole Foods. We live next door to Whole Foods. Where I live is very convenient to everything, but you know, we'll look out our window and say, "Oh, is there a line at Whole Foods or not? And should we run over there and grab a few groceries?" So we'll usually wait until there's really bad weather, and we'll run over there and dodge in, dodge out. It's the rainy days are good days to go to Whole Food and all. It's kind of funny, but it's true.
Yeah, yeah. And Becky, you have two kids, two kind of little kids at home.
I do.
Share with us what that's been like. On top of living in New York City and being a cantor at a big synagogue, you have two kids at home. How is that going for you?
So when we first went into quarantine, it was insane. I think we're finally kind of getting into a rhythm. Both boys, Max is turning actually 11 tomorrow. He is in fifth grade, which is middle school over here, and Jake, who is 9, he's in fourth grade. And they go to Rodef Shalom School, which is our day school. Goes from around 2 years old all the way through 8th grade. It was total chaos because in the beginning, you know, I'm working full time, and the boys were kind of, I want to call them, somebody coined the word feral children. They, they, they were kind of fending for themselves with their school, and Max had a lot of classes that were virtual, which was great because that kind of, he had someone to work with his schoolwork. Jake, on the other hand, who needs a lot of structure, and kids his age need a lot of structure, was kind of left to his own devices. So 9 times out of 10, I'd come out and he'd say, "I'm on a break." And he'd be watching YouTube or playing games with his friends online. And this went on for, I would say, probably 2 weeks, where he maybe had 2 hours of classes or 3 hours of virtual classes, and the rest were on YouTube or filmed. He had a filmed Hebrew class. I'm like, oh yeah, that's gonna work out well. And then they did eventually open it up to almost a full day of school where they have virtual learning, and so they start at about 8:40 in the morning, and they're usually going all day till about 3:30. It's insane, but they're thank God I think they think this is awesome because they loved their devices before. So they haven't really felt like this is a horrible, terrible thing, which is probably for the best.
It's interesting comment because you think about that. They already live so much of their lives, in this way, that I'm sure feels less, obstructive than it does to those of us who did not grow up this way. And certainly, I mean, of course, we use our devices, but we not used to functioning this much on screen. But yeah. So let me ask you now, let's get into the professional side of this. As I mentioned, you're at Congregation Rodef Shalom, a very large and active Upper West Side Reform congregation. It's been there for a very long time, and I believe it was the second Reform temple in America to open its own day school. Right? That's got to be well more than 50 years ago now.
Oh, this was the year they were having a huge celebration for the day school,
Yeah.
it was, I think it was 50 years exactly,
Right?
and we had to cancel. Everything's become a virtual celebration. We did a virtual celebration for Shabbat, for the special Shabbat that was supposed to be for the entire congregation and school
Right.
community.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it was the first Reform Day School, although I think there was another one that was coming open at the same time, maybe in Miami,
I think so. Yeah.
right? I
Right.
think that's correct. And but it's certainly like one of the very first in the States. And at the time, I think it was very controversial and started out, I think, mostly as like a kindergarten through, I don't know, pre-K, K1, and evolved through 5th grade. And then when I started, shortly after I started, it became a middle school through 8th grade.
That's right, because it was that hadn't started until I was gone.
You're right. That's
They
right.
added they
That's right.
added I think they added did they add seventh and eighth?
They added 7th and 8th, right? Because it went
Right.
through 6th, right, right, right. And people were having a hard time,
Right.
getting into middle school because it
Exactly.
wasn't in alignment with, the other middle schools, which I think are
Right.
6th, 7th, 8th. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, clearly they made the right decision 50 years ago. It's been
Oh,
a
yeah.
just a fantastic success there, and yeah. So
Yeah.
I imagine you've been faced with a lot of the same challenges we have here in terms of what do we do? We've talked about the schools and going online, and what's it been like in terms of services for you? Because I know that when I was there, Friday nights there were hundreds of people
Hundreds, yeah.
at services, every single Friday night, and that's a big challenge. What have you done uh, to reach out and keep
It,
those going?
It's so so when this first happened, I think for a couple more weeks we were still in the sanctuary without a congregation, and that was very odd. um, and we would do Friday night, to an empty space, and Saturday morning to an empty space, and just it would be myself and the rabbi and the pianist. That went
Yeah,
on for only about 2 weeks, and then it became very obvious that if we were telling people that they need to stay home, that being in our space was not helpful. It's not. It was a bit. Do as I say, not
yeah,
as
a
I
confused
do.
message.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So we all had to become almost like our own, for lack of a better word, TV stations, and we kind of joke about the fact that a lot of our people back at our staff people are running a television station, right? you know, and we're lovingly calling it instead of 30 Rock, it's 7 West for 7 West 83rd Street, which is where the
that is
synagogue
the
is.
address that I remember it. Yeah,
But my goodness, I've had the learning curve, from when I first started and to where I am now in terms of production value. I mean,
right,
it's uh, it's mind-boggling. In the beginning, I didn't have stable internet. I didn't have the proper microphone. I didn't have the proper setup. It took a couple of good weeks of really figuring all these things out, getting the right settings on Zoom. I'm sure everybody's had to deal with that. I'm finally feeling like I kind of know what I'm doing, and I'm sure now that I know what I'm doing, either one of two things will happen. There'll be yet another platform for us to utilize for worship, maybe, or we'll be getting to go back home, to our sanctuaries. But
let's
uh,
hope. Probably not too
not
soon,
probably
but
not.
we will eventually. We know that it's probably going to
Got
take a little longer than
a
we would
little
like.
longer, yeah.
But
Yeah, unfortunately. But I think what's very interesting is just how we have been able to create community even in these kind of situations, through worship, through even though it's on the computer, it is a live and an interactive experience. Not that I want people chatting in the chat when we
sure,
go back to reality,
right,
but it's nice to know that there are people on the other end of the computer that are there and are
right,
praying for their loved ones. And through the Misha Bharath, we'll often tell them to, put the name in the chat. And,
right.
and we're having virtual Oneg Shabbat, and we're having virtual Havdalah like you all are doing. I saw your beautiful Havdalah, and I couldn't get over how Jillian is a grown up.
21
I was
years
like,
old. Yeah.
I freaked out. 'Cause I only remember her as a little thing. So
Yeah. So Becky, you're doing your Friday night and Saturday morning services live stream from your individual homes.
exactly.
So they're not pre-recorded. You're doing them live.
Yeah, doing them live with
Sometimes you use a musical track that you're singing
right.
along with, but your singing is live.
My singing is live.
Yeah.
Yes. I have my organist has been amazing. He's set a bunch of things for me that anytime I request it, he'll make individual tracks. And then this last Saturday, I don't know if you've had this experience yet. I had my first Zoom Bat Mitzvah. We called it a Zoom Mitzvah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we were not together at all. The family was up in Connecticut, I believe, at their country home.
Right.
I was here. Rabbi Levine was in his home. Rabbi Spratt was in his home. We were all separate. And my organist did some beautiful tracks. And then I said, can we make it extra special? We have all these guys that play for us live. Can
Right.
you ask them to participate in the live track? So I had violin and I had drums, and the drummer's like over in Paris. So he was sending us tracks from Paris. I mean, and it turned out so beautifully, but it's amazing what you can do in these kinds of, I think the creative part of this is what I do enjoy. I've enjoyed the creativity, because that's where I love being creative. And I'm not sure about you, but sometimes we get so mired in the administrative and of what we do, and we don't get to do the stuff that we really are quite enjoy, the creative and the musical. And I don't know, that's been very spectacular.
No, I feel very much the same way. It's opened up a whole other world of creative possibilities.
Right?
And yeah, we're all just kind of feeling our way and experimenting with things and trying them, and some work and some don't, and then you try something else. And I realize that people really still need that connection somehow.
100%, 100%. They, you're going to come onto my show, I call it, on Wednesday, and they're so delighted that you're coming, that everybody remembers you so fondly. And, but people need, connection, and they love, music, and they love having time with their clergy. So I think, it's really interesting what we're all doing to kind of feel better under not so great circumstances.
Yeah, no, it's been really, really, really trying. So speaking of some music, we
Yes.
always have a Misha Bharath as part of our Music Matters engagements, and I'm so happy you've offered to share us live, no pre-production, right?
Oh,
Right
here's
here
the
and now. And
guitar.
before you lead us in the Misha Bharath, Becky, I'm going to ask everyone who's on with us today that take a moment now to, and if you do, by the way, those who are listening here, if you want to, send a name into the chat room for those for whom you're praying, please do so. And of course, we include in all of our prayers now all of the extraordinary people out there who are doing so much. All the healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, maintenance people in all these institutions, and in the nursing homes, in the prisons, where so much of this is just devastating people and lives. So we take them all into our hearts now, and we have Becky beautifully here to lead us in the Misha Bharath.
And I know I'm going to hear you all the way from LA.
That's exactly right.
Misha Bharath Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Limotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misha Bharath Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Miavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal
That was beautiful, Becky. Thank you so much. And it's
Thank
great
you.
not only to see you and to talk with you, but to hear you. So thank you for bringing some lovely music and peace to all of us. Uh, just off the top of my head in this moment, getting to some more into the music a little bit. We think about how actually Jodi Bergman, who's on with us, asked me this question, the Music Matters, several weeks ago, and it was a fascinating question. And her question was, how do pieces of music that we have in the synagogue, how do they travel? Now, now we understand because everybody puts everything, on Facebook, and you can hear anything everybody does, and sometimes that's a good thing. I find oftentimes that's not a good thing. But we know how it travels now, right? And her question was more about, over the ages, like how did Goldfarb's Shalom Aleichem become the anthem in
Right.
American synagogues? How did that happen? There wasn't a recording of it.
Right.
There was no internet. And yet, I explained, look, it's the way music has always traveled from mouth to mouth, from person to person, from little community to little community. And I'm thinking about, Debbie Friedman's, may she rest in peace, this Misha Bharath, which she composed sometime, I'm pretty sure in the 1970s.
Actually, this could be wrong. The copyright says 1988. I don't know if that's
That was when it was published,
published. It must have
right?
been before.
Right? Um, and it's just fascinating to know that if you're going to do a Misha Berach now, certainly in any Reform temple, this is what you're going to be singing, and this is what
Yeah.
everyone's going to expect to hear, and it is now deeply embedded in the contemporary synagogue going, psyche, right? It's
Well,
it's an anthem.
have you ever seen like some of these ultra orthodox doing Havdalah with her nigun?
Yeah, how
Have you?
about that?
I mean, and they don't they. I am pretty positive don't realize it was written by Debbie Friedman. They think it's Miss Sinai. I'm pretty certain.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they would have to think that in order for their rebbes to let them sing it,
Exactly. But I
right?
find it fascinating.
I guess if you sing anything with lie, 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 it's okay. You start with
A
that,
niggin's a niggin.
right? But it's it's
Maybe, I don't know.
it is a fascinating part of our Jewish musical culture, really, and how it is created and how it evolves and becomes something. That Shalom Aleichem that I mentioned, was composed by the Goldfarb rabbi brothers at the seminary, back in around 1912, 1913.
Crazy.
And it is traditional, and that's what it means. And we continue to create our own traditions. First it's new, and then it's familiar, and then it's holy.
Right.
That's kind of
And then it's trad.
right.
The
Right.
tradition, Miss Sinai, somehow it becomes from 1912, it becomes well before that. Oh,
Right.
that's the traditional, the traditional one,
That's right. Yeah.
right?
All these melodies have real power, and we connect with them so deeply. It's very interesting. So, Don Levy, I guess I can do this now. And for those who wish to come on with us
Oh,
and
fun.
ask a question or a comment, either of me or of Cantor Garfein. Some people may want to know, Cantor Garfein, how did you become a cantor? What inspired you?
Well,
Oh, wait, who is that talking in the background? All right. Who's on with us?
I don't know.
Oh, Jodi, was that you I heard? Maybe not. Right. Uh, if anyone does want to ask a question, Eileen, are you there with us?
I'm here, but it's really noisy here, so I'm just going to mute. That's what I usually, there's a lot of construction going on here. It's
Yeah,
been going on for weeks.
there's a lot of construction going on everywhere these days.
They're retrofitting the parking garage for earthquake.
Oh my
Boy,
goodness. You know,
Or in
I'll tell you
concert.
something. Last week, the clergy was kind of putting together a video, kind of a fun video, singing along, and it took me 4 days to do it because
Oh,
two of my neighbors were having all their trees trimmed, and the house behind us doing construction with the
oh,
saws going. This is
It's
all day long, and no matter, I couldn't find any place in my house to drum it out. So I totally understand that.
it's so
okay.
funny because last week when I was doing my class, I was about to debut this new beautiful song that our friend Elliot Balin had written for. It was really for the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, but it's a very uplifting song. It's not depressing at all, but it's challenging.
And you're
And
gonna
I had,
you're gonna send me that song, aren't you?
oh yes, I am.
Yes,
It's
you are.
beautiful. You'll love it.
Now you're on video saying that, so you have to do it.
He'll be delighted. He'll be so happy if it gets shared around.
Oh,
But
please.
I literally outside my window they were cutting trees.
Yes.
And nobody on air could hear it, but I was like, "Oh, great! Now I can't even hear myself or hear them
Yes.
because he had done a beautiful guitar recording for me to sing with."
Yes.
So my fiance went out to the balcony, and
Yes.
he whistled as loudly as he could to these guys, and he's like, "You have to stop." My
My fiance's recording.
she and I will have a very bad day if you don't stop.
Yeah, it got very personal.
He's so funny, but it's so funny because when you want to have quiet to do these things, sometimes the quiet doesn't cooperate, you know?
Here or in New York City for sure.
No.
Yeah. So Jodi, you're back with us. Do you have a question or a comment?
Oh my gosh, this is my favorite thing every week, music.
I know it is,
Aw.
Jodi, and I'm so happy you're on with us. So please,
And Rabbi Nanis called me and she's like, are you busy?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm listening to music." So,
Love it.
but
please
I
say hello to Cantor Rebecca Garfein.
I know I'm so delighted to see you and to
Hi.
meet you and to meet another of the disciples of the Hagadol Vehanora Don Gurney.
Yeah,
We
well,
all
I don't
bow
know if she's a
down before
disciple. I
him.
did get to teach her for a while, but you should know, Becky, you grew up in Florida, right?
I did, Tallahassee.
Jacksonville, right?
No, Tallahassee, you're close. Tallahassee,
yeah,
even more southern.
right?
Tallahassee, 15 minutes from the Georgia border.
But you were also you are the daughter of a rabbi.
I
Who
am.
was the rabbi of the congregation, right?
Yes, Reformed congregation, Temple Israel in Tallahassee. My dad's still living in Tallahassee, and he's emeritus now. But yeah,
I do have a question,
Oh, goody.
which is, and Don knows I have 1,000 questions. I hope this wasn't asked already, but this is such a strange time, which is not anything so profound. But is there any music that is like your go-to kind of comfort music? And that, Don, this question's for you too. Like,
Yeah.
because it's a lot of pressure. I don't think people understand until they get a glimpse behind the scenes that it's not just, singing beautiful cantillation to the congregation, that being a cantor means and is so much more than that. And are there pieces for each of you that really like are comforting? I know you don't always get a prayer experience for yourself
Mm.
or a musical experience for yourself because you are performing. But are there pieces that are your comfort pieces?
It's so funny. I thought you meant just in the more secular universe. And then I realized, no, you mean like when we're praying with the congregation.
Both.
So the first thing is my go-to, and for those of you who don't know me, my husband passed away about 3 years ago. And so for a very long time, the only thing I could listen to was Bruce Springsteen. I love Bruce Springsteen. I've loved him since I'm 15, and I discovered him, as a kid. But also, just I over the years, that was something, because my husband was from New Jersey. I converted him into becoming a Bruce fanatic. I mean, he might have been more of a Bruce fanatic than I was towards the end, but I'm pretty up there. And so after he passed, that was really all I could listen to, and I still am very drawn to Bruce's music. And then now, especially, like, I find myself again, like, that's, for me, that's like comforting. I don't know. It's just very comforting. And I like to I just binge out. I have the XM, Sirius XM channel, E Street Radio. And I'm just, that's what I listen to 90% of the time, which is,
Right.
but in terms of worship music, I mean, there's a gorgeous, I don't know if you know this one, Don, Michael Oakes and Daniel Leans wrote a beautiful Shalom Rav.
Yeah, yeah. I've sung it. I've
Oh.
been singing it for a couple of years now.
Dan,
Daniel, just so you know, Rebecca,
he's by you, right?
Daniel is at Kehillat Israel in the Palisades.
That's what I thought he was in LA or California.
Yeah, he's in the Palisades. He's with Chaim Frankel.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that. Well,
That's
he's
a beautiful.
phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah,
He inherited all of Cantor Jenny's music. I don't know if you knew that.
yeah. I didn't. Yeah.
So, but he's phenomenal. So I find that piece particularly affecting. I'd like, for me as well. I think it's, and then there's another thing that I do sometimes. It's Bob Dylan. It's his "I Shall Be Released," and I combine that with an Oseh Shalom. And for me, that's also something that resonates. But those are just two things off the top of my head.
So
I'd
you
like
know
to hear
what, Jodi? I'm going to tell Rebecca. You're going to laugh at this. I think that Becky, when Steve Leader sees this,
Yeah.
he's going to be calling you because he is the Dylan fan of all Dylan fans.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
he might be offering you a job here soon. I may have to go
Only
back to
if I
Rodef.
get to work with you, Chazan.
All right,
'Cause,
deal.
I love you.
Yeah, deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, you know what, for me, Jodi, I will tell you, it's very interesting. Obviously, I'm doing liturgical music all the time, and like Becky, there are a number of pieces that I find myself listening to or sitting down at my little keyboard here and just playing through that bring me joy
Like,
and peace. There are a number of them. Some of them which I do, I've done regularly at the temple. There are others that for whatever reasons, I haven't done that I play through. But in addition to those things, in the secular world, because I'm a huge fan of contemporary choral music, and I have gone online. I have found the most stunningly beautiful choral music. I mean, one of them who's done a lot of work here. I'm sure you know of Eric Whitaker.
oh yeah.
Is a brilliant composer and does amazing things, both his music itself and in terms of production. The most gorgeous sounds. He happens to be married to a beautiful Israeli mezzo soprano, for whom he wrote a setting of 5 Hebrew love songs
Oh my
for
goodness.
for mezzo and choir. So I find myself listening to a lot of
I'm gonna go look for that.
beautiful choral music, and it's the one thing that I find that I have focus for. I love to read. I can't read right now. I just can't. Jodi and I were talking about this. Books that I love to read. I can't read more than a page, but music I'm listening to, all the time. That's the one thing that brings me. It's more than comfort. It's what I want to be doing. So.
Do you have like any like favorite artists other than like outside of like the who do you listen to if you're just listening? Are there people you like to enjoy? And I'm just curious.
I have for a long time, and I still listen to them. I listen to these days. I listen to more Tony Bennett than I ever used to, especially his stuff that he made like in the 70s and 80s.
Oh yeah.
Towering genius singer. There are plenty of others. Once you go on the internet and you click on one, you get 50 other things. I mean,
Like
for
a rabbit hole. You just go down the rabbit hole and you just can never
joy,
get out.
I'm listening to Earth, Wind, and Fire.
I like them.
Again, Jody, you mentioned this, and Becca too. For me, it's like these are things that are from our youth that are still so connected to our memories of our youth and who we were, right? And when I hear them, it's like, I'm back in that Mustang convertible, and whatever, I don't,
I
So
actually
true.
read something, Don. That is real.
yes,
That everybody, if you ask them what's your favorite kind of music to listen to,
right.
the answer is always whatever their senior year in high school was,
Yeah, it's very interesting, right? Yeah.
which is totally right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a different favorite.
Yes.
There he is.
Mark
Hey,
Palmer.
I figured it out.
Are you gonna? What are you gonna?
That's who I was texting with.
Get ready for some country music from Mark Dauber.
I hope you listened to the link that I gave you. It was really enjoyable.
Yeah, but I will.
My favorite, not that I'm pandering or anything, but my favorite was whenever our kids were in elementary school and I get to hear Don Gurney's voice for the first time.
Oh,
That brings me back home every time I hear it.
you're so sweet. You're so sweet. I'll Bevmo you the check, the payment.
Thank you.
Venmo. Venmo.
Asa Azul.
Venmo is a place you buy alcohol, which maybe you should cut down on. Venmo is the place you send money. You don't want to mix those up.
I meant for Mark Dauber. I meant Bevmo.
I think he knew exactly what he was saying, Jodi.
Hilarious.
Because the last time we got to actually, the last time we saw each other was the last time I'm sure you and I both played tennis.
Oh no.
No,
I'm
you
playing
played
twice a
tennis.
week still. I found a court.
Oh, good for you. It was the last time I played when you had gloves on your hands, right?
Yeah.
And then we actually had dinner. I think we had dinner before that. Right?
Just the week before that.
Yeah, so that's why I said the Bevmo.
Yeah.
Ah, those were the days.
Yeah. Right.
Exactly.
Ah,
Yeah, music is,
again.
during these days, I mean, in the broader spectrum, we do all find music in our hearts. It's amazing what it can do, and it is the most mysterious of all art forms, I find. I'm sure others feel that way about art itself and painting and architecture, whatever it is. But for me, that's what gets me through.
absolutely.
I'm actually a little excited because I have to imagine that cantors are getting exposed right now to all sorts of people who are producing music during this period.
Yeah.
And I feel like this creative period of time, when we are all back together, I think it's going to be an explosion
Yeah.
of cantors presenting new pieces and new Don, what's it called when orchestrations and new I think it's just going to be, because what are people like you doing? They're sitting at home playing their piano.
Well, it's, what, I'll tell you, I think that whole world has really existed for a number of years now. People have been, everybody's been putting out stuff for a number of years now. It just we haven't been focused on it as much because it's limited to, really a small audience out there who are interested in those things. Now, we're all in that world. Every Jewish musician and every cantor is we're pushed into this new genre, and I think it's going to be very interesting what survives as being meaningful once we're back live and in person with other people. I think in the broader musical spectrum, I think it will definitely continue, no question. In terms of worship experience, I'm not sure. It'll be interesting to see what people find meaningful going forward, because I'm sure Becky has the same experience, that doing these things, even live streaming or whatever, the central component is missing, and that is people being together.
Yeah.
And that is, you can't replace that. I think production of all these kinds of things, that we're doing will get, slicker and better and all that. And, but I think that particular thing of human beings being together for whatever reason, whether it's prayer and song or just enjoying each other's company, I don't think that's going to go away.
Oh, I hope not.
But no, I don't think so.
I don't
Just
think it's gonna-
I tend to agree. I think there are lessons that we are learning through this experience
right.
that I do think will translate back into the synagogue. You know, be it, I hope personally, for me personally, like I was saying before, I really enjoy the creative process so much. And I think for me, and Don, I can't speak for Don, but you get very busy with the administrative parts of things, which, don't get me wrong, that's very important in the running, day-to-day running of a congregation. But sometimes you get very mired in that and not having enough time to do the creative thinking. And the creative thinking is really important. I mean, that's the out of the box, figuring things out, making things interesting is very important. So I do hope when I go back, God willing, to the actual physical building that I can have more space for the creative endeavors, because I really, really enjoy that a lot. And I've been reminded of that in this situation.
That's a really important point you make, Becky.
Right?
For all of us, Cantors for sure. I think it applies to all of us, to
Yes.
all clergy, to all people, no matter really what position they're in, in a synagogue or beyond. We realize how much time we really would love to have and need to be able to sit down and think about vision and creativity, whatever it is that we do. Most of our time is spent like working
Yeah.
and just doing it and getting it done, from one thing to the next. And that becomes very kind of tedious and boring, no matter what it is we do. So the time spent, and that is a lesson that I have been learning through this process too. I have more time to think about things. Well, I got 2 weeks to, create something, and I have a lot of time to, think about it and create it. And going back, we're going to need to really work hard to keep carving out that time for ourselves, both personally and with the people we work with.
Absolutely.
And hopefully we'll
100%.
take that lesson with us. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're gonna say goodbye in just a moment, and let me first thank Cantor Rebecca Garfein
Thank
for
you.
joining me on this show today.
That was so great.
It's so great to
So
just
awesome.
spend time with you again and to hear you sing just a little bit for sure, and really to hear some of your insights and also what it's been like for you being in New York City, through all of this, as a cantor, as a human being, as a mom,
Hmm.
just what that's been like. And I think it's wonderful, meaningful for you to have shared all that with our listeners here, and to let people know that I'm going to be on your turf this coming Wednesday. What time are we doing that again?
12:30, which is 9:30 your time, I think.
That's okay. I'm up at 6. It's not a problem. That's halfway through the day, and we'll be in conversation and hopefully get a chance to make some music as well. So we look forward to that.
Absolutely. It'll be great.
So right, Cuomo was right. We are physically distant, socially distanced, but spiritually connected.
I like that.
Right? We like that.
Yeah.
So I want to thank everyone for tuning in today. We'll be back next Monday. If it's Monday, it's Music Matters with another episode. And I know I'm going to have the next whole week to think about what I might want to do creatively for next Monday. Right?
Thank you.
Do it.
All right.
Thank you all.
You
Stay
are welcome.